Necromorph types. There are many forms that evolve from the chaos of the butchery that is the Necromorph swarm. There are generally two main kinds though, those that kill the flesh and those that infect the flesh. Both are just as important to one another to spreading the Necromorph contagion. The specific type and variant of Necromorph that emerges is linked to a few factors. Some of these are the location in which the host is infected, the location of the corpse in the varying environment, and the circumstance and progression of the Necromorph outbreak. Things like age of the host's corpse and how long it has been dead are also an important factor. Some necros even form specifically from multiple deceased corpses, and the number of corpses may be indicative of the type of creature they become. It's possible that the markers and even more mentally powerful necros may be able to influence the type of necromorphs that the host corpses become. Additionally, human testing has shown to have the ability to not only produce specific types of necros, but also unique, unnatural ones that haven't been seen to occur naturally. There is a form of necromorph that is only its purest form, with no other organism's DNA attached. This tissue appears as a strange, pinkish, translucent biomass that has the ability to move independently as well as grasp and manipulate its surroundings. The flesh is capable of seeking out necrotic tissues in order to infect and mutate into their own biomass. If for whatever reason the pure necromorph tissue is able to get into the body of a living organism, it can slowly work to bring that organism down and eventually necrotize it. The slasher is the most common form of necromorph. They are what I would call the default version of the initial necromorph outbreak. These necromorphs possess large boned blades that form from their bodies and give them their name. They tend to attack their victims utilizing a large set of dome-bladed forearms that can sometimes be dominant to the two smaller arms that are used to lock onto a victim and hold them in place for the necromorph to make a fatality. These appendages also allow the creature to move faster and traverse more difficult and vertical landscapes and environments. A leaper is a more savage variant of the necromorph that's still in the same vein as a slasher. They possess more muscular arms and a more pronounced head from their neck. They notably lack the pronounced bony structures that the slasher is famous for. Their faces are far more fearsome as they possess mandibles and appear simply more ravenous. The main limb that defines the leaper is its tail. This structure is a combination of a leg along with a few other organs and tissues to form a powerful tail, able to be manipulated and coiled to basically spring the creature forwards towards its prey. The lurker is the result of children or infants being converted into necromorphs. These creatures heavily mutate their victims into nothing more than a muscular mass that now possesses tentacled limbs extending from their stomach region and act as a primary mode of locomotion. Lurkers attack with a trio of lashing and slashing tentacles that extend from their backs and have the ability to fire barbed projectiles at their victims. The infector is a necromorph largely responsible for the infection of new biomass. They are always on the hunt for new flesh and biological material to convert and bring into the fold. They appear as a twisted, distorted monstrosity, possessing large insect-like feelers that help them traverse the location of potential biomass, and then a prominent stinger that is constructed from a fusion of bone, flesh, and spinal tissue. They use this construction in a combination with wing-like flaps that grow from their bodies to envelop their prey, before using this stinger to directly pierce into the victim's brain or vital area of the host. During this time they deposit a mutagenic liquid that is capable of rapidly turning a host corpse or even a living corpse into a necro. The necromorph known as a pregnant sports enormous sacs containing smaller and lesser necromorphs. Similar to the slasher counterparts, they possess large boned protrusions similar to scythes. The pregnant, if under heavy threat or near death, will act to even the odds a little. In these situations, the pregnant can choose to rip open its sacs and release the necros within. These necros are generally slower, less agile, and aren't as dangerous by themselves, but contain a deadly surprise to unsuspecting victims. A swarmer is a smaller form of necro that appears to be little more than resurrected chunks of biological material. They actively attack in large groups as to supplement their smaller size and use their large numbers to confuse, overwhelm, and effectively defeat their targets. In this process, the creatures literally swarm their victims like bees and act to tear them apart through savage and brutal attack. Like the infector, necros, the swarm are also a primary vessel for passing on the infection to others. A brute is one of the larger variants of necromorphs created from more than one corpse. They can be anywhere from a couple to a couple dozen corpses comprising their form, and this fact gives them incredible size, strength, and versatility. Having such mass means that they are much more reinforced in their exterior. On top of simply possessing a dense outer layer of flesh, the brute also possesses spiked protrusions in addition to their armor plating, which act both as a defensive and offensive weapon. In addition, they can also fire organic projectiles out of holes in their stomachs, if they feel death is close by. Exploders are suicidal explosive necros that possess large, glowing growths over their bodies and limbs. This necro either came from a host with a cracked or split open skull, or simply mutated into that. Either way, exploders have fashioned this trait into a deadly weapon by transforming it into a large and dangerous snapping jaw. Exploders are known to have one of the most devastating explosive pustules that, when utilised, can easily destroy a human body, making it ready for convergence. A divider is a slender and tall necro. Notably terrifying in my opinion, a divider is able to split apart into smaller necros. They usually do this when their body has sustained considerable damage and make a last attempt at overwhelming their attackers. A PUKER is a necromorph that has the ability to spit corrosive stomach bile from their throats and out onto their victims. They are heavily mutated for this purpose, with their host legs being formed into one powerful one and another constructed via the host's intestines. They work to support their motion in attacking their victims. The large amount of acidic bile present in and on their bodies, though, has resulted in these necromorphs looking deformed, with flesh sagging from their bones and their internal organs being visible and filled with acidic sludge. Not to be confused with the fighting machines. These necromorphs are comprised of multiple corpses and are known as the tripods. They are comprised of multiple corpses and make up a three-legged beast capable of tremendous brute strength attacks due to their physical stature. They can also attack via use of a bladed tentacle-like tongue they use to slice and dice their victims. Whilst their long limbs make them stronger and faster than most, they are also a vulnerability and leave them open to attack in these locations, likely resulting in massive damage to the creature if severed. There is a group of necros formed from the corpses of children, known as the Pack. The Pack is a horde of children's corpses, spawned necros, that aren't as mutated as others. Instead, they appear more humanoid, and similar to smaller versions of the Slasher. Despite their similarities to the Slasher, the Pack members can be more easily defeated, which helps explain the literal pack mentality. They additionally have fanged mouths and can coordinate effectively to bring down and converge more flesh into the fold. Stalkers are an interesting form of necromorph. They are more like raptors than they are like humans, even though they have largely been seen to be originating from human corpses. They are also seen to be far more intelligent, utilising specific tactics to hunt their prey. They additionally possess large talon-like claws and have their rib cages spread open, which can both act as a weapon and a defensive measure. They sport large, domed skulls, which they use both defensively and offensively. A crawler has origins in common with necros like the Pack, or more so lurkers, which both result from infant or children corpses, or pretty much just corpses that are young. Crawlers are bloated, with the explosive pus found in many necromorph variants. This makes them extremely volatile, and they are likely to explode if struck the wrong way. Crawlers appear as humanoid with twisted, fused legs, as well as backwards facing torsos and heads, leading to the creature needing to crawl instead of walk. The feeder is another interesting type of necro. This necromorph comes about from a living host ingesting necromorph tissue or tissue already infected by a necromorph. This act can be voluntary, such as those who starve and resort to the practice, or can be forced. When it is forced, it is likely a result of the markers influencing those organisms' minds. However, cult activities and scientific testing is also a possible reason why this would occur. After ingesting necromorph tissue, the host time is limited before the tissue will make its kill and begin to transform the host into a feeder. Feeders are savage and slender, appearing like emaciated humans. Whilst they aren't the most powerful enemy, being quite weak, they are rabid and pose a greater threat in numbers. The Tormentor is a hideous and fearsome creature standing high above the average person. They are comprised of multiple corpses, however this does not hinder their mobility. They possess a collection of around 6 powerful limbs that they can either use as arms or legs. Their faces are savage, with mandibles and pincer-looking appendages adding to the terror that this creature emits by its mere appearance. The midsection of this creature is almost serpentine in nature, whilst the limbs are straight, long and rigid like insects. The common connection between these limbs and bodies are the weak areas, and the best place to lay attacks. The rest of the creature's outer surface is rough and spiked, with twisted blades to add to the monstrosity. The creature's maneuverability is also something quite remarkable for its stature, and its strength is something to fear. The UBERMORPH is unique, notably due to the fact that it has no human traits in its design. Whilst not possessing human traits, it can still be constructed from one, but seems to be a more purest state of the creature's appearance, whilst the human traits in many necromorphs are simply advantageous leftovers from their human corpses. Its body is notably similar to that of a slasher, possessing large bony protrusions shaped into bladed weapons. While it is devoid of human features, it is still bipedal. Its face is packed with 5 sensory organs and sharp bony appendages. The UBERMORPH is able to regenerate from substantial amounts of damage, and can inflict serious damage itself with a combination of its enhanced strength and physical abilities over the single corpse necromorphs. Guardian necromorphs are generally slow moving or simply don't move at all, remaining stationary and protecting the rest of their brethren. There is a few different subcategories of Guardian Necros, which I will go through now. The Corruption Entity is one of these guardians and is immobile. They are like brutes in the fact that they are comprised of multiple and numerous corpses, however are much larger and actually one of the largest single necromorphs that exist. They start with the appearance of their host, but as they accumulate more mass and mutate further towards their pure necromorph state, they begin to lose a great deal of their host's physical traits. Like the pregnant, they begin to produce large sacs around their bodies, in addition to holes towards the top of their bodies. From these holes grow appendages, powerful enough to grapple to surfaces and act to keep the corruption entity in place as they lose the ability to mobilize. They defend themselves in a couple of ways. One is by using slasher-like bony appendages that protrude from their form to attack incoming hostiles and victims, whilst the second is the ability to produce and spew forth embryonic-like necromorphs called pods or cysts. These smaller necros can burst into a small explosion that is relatively low yield. However, when the creatures gather into a group or swarm, like the necromorphs of the same name, they can become deadly, as in numbers they will prevail. The corruption entity is also able to take in certain atmospheric gases, notably oxygen, and convert it into a toxic gas, both to kill any other potential host organisms and to help bolster other necromorphs' abilities to adapt to their environments that they are in at any time. The nest is another stationary necromorph. They strangely are suggested to mostly be comprised from multiple female corpses. They have swollen appendages that protrude from their mass and keep them stable, assisted by a hulking bulk of flesh at their base. Nests, when resting, choose to retract into their central mass, which is incredibly dense and hard to penetrate. Nests will remain retracted in their own mass until sensing a victim, at which point they will emerge and proceed to expel swarms of smaller necromorphs as projectiles that explode on contact with their target. Another Guardian variant is the WHEEZER. These necromorphs are strangely, and even more rarely so, non-hostile to prey that they encounter. It is also mostly non-mobile and simply sits in place and waits. The only real threat that they pose to others is the poisonous gas that they breathe out and exhaust into the atmosphere around them whilst making ghastly noises. Any other threat they pose is simply the fact that they can react to a host's presence and draw other unaware necromorphs to their location in order to indirectly bring more potential flesh into the convergence. Another Guardian class is what is known as the SLUG. The necromorph is very large and mostly immobile, with 5 powerful tentacles protruding from its form. It is extremely difficult to deal with in terms of light firearms and requires high power artillery to even make a noticeable dent, likely attributed to the amount of corpses this creature is composed of. The Leviathan is another Guardian level entity. However, unlike a lot of its kin, the Leviathan was not completely immobile, seen as it is able to move about ships and perch itself somewhere before becoming immobile. The Leviathan grows to a massive size and comes packing a number of fleshy, large tentacles that it uses to defeat its prey. It possesses one large gaping mouth and hideous bulbous orbs towards its central mass. The creature is additionally able to spawn forth organic bombs that are deadly to hostiles. Much like corruption entities, they are able to convert the air of their environment to a toxic mess. These facts would seem to suggest that Leviathans are in a way related directly to corruption entities, possibly being the necros that eventually grow into corruptions. Possibly one of the largest, if not then fearsome creatures in the necromorph types is the hive mind necromorph. The Guardian is simply massive, and nears itself at times the scales of whole land masses. Obviously, in its mature state, the creature is not able to move, and is kept stationary by its immense size. However, before the creature comes to rest, the beast possesses an elongated lower section, itself containing a number of powerful legs. On top of this sits the main worm-like body mass, that contains a number of both tentacles and more rigid-like limb appendages that are barbed and very dangerous. It possesses pustule sacs of great size. The hive mind is able to spit out acidic projectiles, sourcing these from the sacs on their bodies. Its only discernible facial features is a circular maw that holds a jaw packed with sharp razor fangs, which can be used to easily kill and consume its victims in order to bring their biomass into the collective. One of these gargantuan creatures was actually created by the human military during their experiments on a red marker. The hive mind, whilst man-made, appeared to be a great advantage to the necromorph outbreak, as it was able to help coordinate attacks and use its incredible intelligence and power over other necromorphs via some kind of mental link to produce strategic advantages from them in order to attempt a convergence. Its weak spot is the acidic sacs it possesses, and hitting it in these locations will ensure maximum damage is done to its surrounding tissues, which are unable to withstand the effects of the acid. Now, as we come to the final Necro variant, we move away from the Guardian class, as this creature is something all its own. This is the Hunter. The Hunter is a unique creature that is in fact artificially created by human scientists. This creature was created by placing some of the corruption entity's tissues inside a living or dead human host. If the host is alive, it will eventually die and become the Hunter. It appears similar to a slasher or UBERMORPH. The Hunter though is much larger than both and would appear to be devoid of a bottom jaw, usable eyes, or anything else, making the creature appear far more menacing. The Hunter is able to regenerate lost limbs that are damaged or completely severed. This means that the creature will likely be able to survive where other necros would simply bleed out. Complete and utter incineration is required to keep this creature from returning to its full form. The last creature that we could talk about is the Brethren Moon, but since I have already given the description for that in part 1 of the episodes, I won't be doing that here. Before I go, I wanted to let you know about the Acheron Colonial Marketplace, the one-stop shop for all Project Acheron merch. Here you can pick up shirts, hoodies, mugs, phone cases and more. So if you want to support the channel and look good doing it, pick up some Acheron merch. But what other videos would you like to see? If you have any ideas or have any questions, please leave them in the comments or contact me through Twitter or on the Project Acheron Discord. If you enjoyed, please leave a like and share this video. And if you want to really help see this channel thrive and grow, as well as gain a bunch of awesome rewards for yourself, consider becoming a patron, such as Christopher Dasinger and Ambrosia, leaders of the Project Acheron Hive. I hope to see you all here again very soon, but until then, this is Project Acheron signing off.